My wife betrayed me in the worst way possible and karma caught up with her. Call it instinct if you want. But the day I pulled up to the house, I felt something was wrong. I turned off the car, got out of the car, and walked into the house, almost expecting to be swallowed by the giant black hole that suddenly appeared under my feet. The house smelled wrong, somehow. I put down my briefcase and was greeted by Nikki, my wife of 6 years. I was startled to see my neighbor, Ben, standing next to her with an acerbic grin. Stu, Nikki began. It's me, by the way, Stuart Johnston, Stu to my friends and family. For the last few years, that had included Nikki, but as I was about to find out, that was no longer the case. Yes, Nikki, I said. What's going on? And why is Ben here? Go on, tell him, Ben asked. Tell him what? I asked. I've been having sex with your wife in your bed all day, Ben babbled, and the smirk on his face got even wider. Is that true, Nikki? I asked. Yes, Nikki replied. She then smiled at Ben, which obviously gave her a second wind and courage. It was enough that she was having sex with the asshole, but the expression of love she gave him was like a punch to the gut. It made me want to strangle them both right here in the living room. Then Nikki turned to me and uttered, Stu, honey, she began. I interrupted her. They both looked at me in surprise. First of all, Nikki, you can no longer call me darling, Stu, beloved, or anything other than Stuart or Mr. Johnston. Please continue. Okay, Stuart. I just wanted to let you know that from now on in our relationship, I'm putting Ben above you. I interrupted her again. Since you've been cheating on me all day here, we no longer have a relationship. And the fact that you had sex with him in our marital bed proves that you put him above me, I told her. Ben started to blush. Okay, Nikki said nervously. Ben said that from now on, you are no longer allowed to make love to me, and everything I do will be geared towards pleasing him. That's the way it's supposed to be. You assume a lot, Nikki. Do you really think I'm going to want to touch you after you've slept with him? No. Nikki recoiled in shock at that statement, but quickly came to her senses. Ben said that from now on, he will have sex with me here in our bed, and you can stay in the guest room, Nikki stated. I looked at Ben and saw his smirk get even wider and looked at Nikki again. Once again, you're wrong, Nikki. You're forgetting that this is my house. I inherited it from my grandparents, so you're just a tenant. If you insist on doing that, then you'll have to leave. What? I'm not leaving. Yeah, Ben picked up on that. Shut up, both of you. My name is the only name on the contract. Ben has his own apartment right next door. If you want to have sex with him, do it there. But I'll be gracious. I'll only give you half an hour to get your stuff out of my house. Anything left over will go in my pile to be burned in the backyard. Are you serious? Asked Nikki, shocked. Like a blow. Time's running out. You'd better hurry up. In 30 minutes, whatever's left will be burned. You better help her, I said to Ben. Eyes wide, they stared at each other for a few moments and then rushed upstairs to gather what they could. I set the timer on my phone for 30 minutes, grabbed a beer, and watched them run between the two houses with Nikki's stuff. They were already at the front door, laden with Nikki's stuff, when my timer went off. Time's up, that's it. But, Nikki began. Nothing, I said. You had 30 minutes. Your time is up. Now leave and never show up on my doorstep again. You will listen to my lawyer. You can't say that, Nikki said. Oh, but I mean it. Now go away. This isn't over, asshole, Ben growled. That sounds like a threat, I replied. Take it any way you want, but this is far from over, Ben growled before the two men left. I closed and locked the door, sat down on the couch, and took a deep breath. Then I began to formulate a plan. My friend, Eric Stutzman, worked as a private investigator for a local firm. He had served with the local police department until he was seriously injured while on a call. I decided to call him first. Stutzman, he said, picking up the phone. Eric, Ben Johnston here. I need a big favor right away. Don't worry, I'll pay you. What is it, Ben? Asked Eric. He listened intently while I explained the situation. Yeah, it's really bad, he said. Tell you what, I'll come over and we'll put a wire in here. If they try anything, we'll finish them off. Have you called a locksmith yet? No, I haven't. Call him right now. Have them replace all the exterior locks. You may also need to change the code on the garage door opener, but get her car out first. Give me about an hour to get the crew and some stuff together, okay? Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it, I told him. We ended the conversation and I contacted a locksmith I knew. He agreed to come over and replace the locks. I'll be there in half an hour, he said. Thanks, I told him, and ended the conversation. I ate a sandwich and was just finishing up when the locksmith arrived. While he was working, I went online and did what I could to protect myself financially. I transferred most of our money into the account I had before we got married. I knew Nikki didn't have access to it. I also paid off and canceled our joint credit cards. Then I went upstairs and started packing up the things Nikki had left behind. Clothes, trinkets she just had to have, even the expensive Vera Wang wedding dress she wore on her wedding day, and our wedding album. I carried it all outside and threw it all in a pile to be burned in the backyard of my property. Grabbing a can of lighter fluid, I soaked it all up, then struck a match and watched it all go up in flames. I looked over to Ben's house and saw Nikki looking out the upstairs window. Her eyes widened as she watched her beautiful wedding dress and pictures go up in flames. I wagged my finger at her and stepped aside, watching everything burn to ash. It was a teenage thing to do, I admit, but it felt good. Eric showed up with a couple of other men just as the locksmith finished the job. He was supervising the installation of cameras and microphones. I knew Nikki and Ben could see the activity in my house, but they didn't know what was going on inside. Frankly, I didn't care if they could see. While they worked, I drove Nikki's car out of the garage and parked it in Ben's driveway. Nikki ran out of Ben's house with a red face. "What are you doing?" she screamed. "I'm banishing you from my house and out of my life," I told her. "Here's your spare car key. I don't need it," I said, tossing her the key. "And this too," I added, tossing her an engagement ring. "But my wedding dress!" "What did you expect? Did you think I'd take your betrayal quietly? What are these guys doing in the house?" "None of your business," I growled before walking back into the house. Eric met me at the house. "Everything's all set. We've cordoned off the entire area, inside and out. I've also set up surveillance on your phone. Anything that is recorded will go to a device we have set up in the attic and will also be stored in the cloud. Here's what you need to access it," Eric said, handing me a piece of paper with the web address and credentials. "Thanks," I said. "I'll also check out this Ben Jackson, see what I can find, and keep an eye on your wife. Remember, don't do anything on your own. If you need to, call 911 and then call me. If you haven't hired an attorney yet, I suggest you do so as soon as possible. Got it?" "Got it, Eric. And thanks again." "No problem. I've been there myself, you know." I remembered his agony over 10 years ago when he caught his wife cheating at a rundown club. I wrote a check for his services and thanked the others. Eric and his crew left, and I locked the doors, set the alarm, and sat on the couch with a beer, trying to make sense of it all. Had I done something to piss Nikki off? I work as a building inspector for the city, so I don't have to travel out of town. I'm home every day, and aside from the occasional weekend golf game, I don't go anywhere without Nikki. Eventually, I decided none of that mattered. Not anymore. She had betrayed me in the worst way a spouse can be betrayed. Yeah, she had to pay for it. Fortunately for me, my father insisted that we sign a prenup to protect my inheritance and the house I inherited from my grandparents after they died. His first wife had cheated on him, and he hated cheaters. The prenup included a harsh infidelity clause stating that the guilty party would leave the marriage with only what they brought with them, their personal belongings and the clothes on their back. Nikki will receive a check for $253.18 and her car, which she bought before the wedding. The money is what she had in her account when we got married. Although Dad is a lawyer, and a very good one, he doesn't specialize in family law. But I knew he could refer me to the best in the business, so I called him. "I knew it," Dad exclaimed when I told him what had happened. "It's a very good thing you signed a prenup. Tell you what, let me call my friends. We'll take care of this. And you just relax and don't do anything stupid. You hear me, kid? I don't want to have to bail you out of jail." "Don't worry, Dad. I've got it under control," I told him. "Good. If you need anything at all, call me. Do you hear me?" "I will, Dad. Thanks. For everything," I said. "You're welcome, son. And remember, I love you and I'm very proud of you." The fact that he said that to me meant a lot. I seconded his words, and we ended the conversation. That night I slept in the guest bedroom, not wanting to touch the bed where Nikki and Ben had committed adultery. The next day I arranged for the bed to be replaced and for the old one to be moved out. I didn't care what they did with it. Let them burn it. I didn't care. 2 days later, true to his word, Dad set me up with the meanest divorce lawyer he could find, Lisa Hawkins. She was pleasant to look at and quite friendly, almost flirtatious, but she hated cheaters with a passion and burned them to the ground every chance she got. She went through all the papers I gave her and drew up divorce papers based on the prenup between Nikki and me. According to the papers, Nikki was to get out of the marriage with only her car, clothes, and a check for $253.18. There would be no support or alimony. Lisa told me that she would also file a protective order against Nikki that would require her to move out of Ben's house. Since I live in one of the few states that still allow attachment alienation lawsuits, Lisa filed a lawsuit against Ben Jackson. However, she warned that it might not accomplish anything. From his investigation, Eric learned that Ben was in serious financial trouble, his mortgage was underwater, and he was facing foreclosure. Nikki had thankfully stayed away from me the entire 2 days, no doubt being coddled every minute while Ben was home. But I didn't care. I drove down my street, noticing the cars parked along the curb and in Ben's driveway. Maybe, I thought, they're having a party. I pulled into my garage, and I was overcome with the same strange feeling I'd had the day Nikki had laid her bomb out for me. I shook it off and walked into the house where the shock of my life was waiting for me. There, in all his glory, stood Ben. Nikki was standing next to him, and I saw several other people in the house. Well, if it isn't an asshole," Ben smirked. "What are you doing here?" I started before I felt a prick in my neck. But before I could do or say anything, I blacked out. I woke up bound, gagged, and tied to a hard wooden chair on the back deck. I was unclothed except for a strange contraption attached to my dignity. Not far from me stood Nikki and Ben, both without clothes. Another woman stood in front of them, and the others were gathered around them. I realized what was going on. This had to be their coming-out party, which obviously included a mock wedding. They even had someone with a video camera recording what was going on. None of them knew that I also had a videotape of what was going on. The woman standing in front of Nikki uttered, "Who's keeping this woman from having sex?" "Him," Nikki said, pointing at me. "Very good. Do you, Nikki Johnston, give up all the rights of your lawful husband to become one with this man, Ben Jackson? Do you put yourself in Ben's hands to be his cheating wife? To have sex with him and anyone else he tells you to? And do you accept this man's dominion over your body and soul for as long as you both live?" "I agree," declared Nikki. "And do you, Benjamin Jackson, take this woman as your cheating partner to have sex with her anytime, anywhere, and any way you wish, all the days of your life?" "Yes," Ben growled. He slipped the ring onto Nikki's finger while she did the same to him. "Very good. I hereby declare you businessman friends. You may now have sex with your cheating girlfriend," the woman said. Ben enclosed Nikki in an embrace and began kissing her, stroking her body. The others applauded loudly as they watched this spectacle. After Ben finished having sex with Nikki, he turned to the other men who were taking turns having sex with her. "What about the jilted husband?" the woman asked. Ben looked up with a smirk and then came. He stroked himself a couple times, and at first I thought he was going to make me caress his body. But he didn't. Instead, he peed on me, laughing. The others, including Nikki, laughed along with him. Ben motioned for the other men to join him, which they did. After each of them peed on me, Nikki came over and did the same. I almost threw up while all this was going on. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't free myself from my bonds, but I could feel them loosening. "Wash him out. He stinks," Nikki muttered, finishing up. Ben smirked, untying me from the chair. Unfortunately, my hands and feet were still bound, but the ropes were loose enough that I figured I could free myself from them if I had another minute or two. After Ben finished, 3 other men joined him. They picked me up and threw me, still bound, into the deep end of the pool, while the others laughed incoherently. I thought I was going to drown and was thrashing around in the water, trying to untie the restraints. I still had the gag in my mouth, and I almost succumbed. Suddenly, the ropes holding my wrists loosened, and I was able to move my arms. I somehow managed to get to the shallow end of the pool where I was able to stand up. I pulled the gag out of my mouth and took a deep breath. Looking around, I saw Ben, Nikki, and the others gathered in one corner of my backyard. The men were taking turns having sex with her. They didn't even know I existed, which was fine with me. I quickly removed the ropes from my ankles and rushed inside. Except for the dignity cage, I was still unclothed and no one saw me, as all attention was focused on the event in the backyard. Going upstairs, I called 911. "Please, they broke into my house and tried to kill me. I got out, but I know they will finish the job if they find me. Please hurry," I yelled. The dispatcher got my information and said she sent patrol cars to my house immediately. My subsequent calls were to Dad, Eric, and Lisa, in that exact order. By the time I spoke to Lisa, 4 police cars with blinkers had pulled up in front of our house. Looking out the window, I saw 3 police officers enter the backyard. I heard a knock on the door and realized the others were waiting for someone to let them in. I threw on my robe and went downstairs to open the door. 3 officers came in, and I explained to them what had happened. One of the officers inspected the cage and went back to his cruiser. He returned a few minutes later with bolt cutters and retrieved the device, placing it in an evidence bag. "I have a videotape of what happened here," I said to the sergeant, who seemed to be in charge. "Let's take a look," he said. I booted up my laptop, entered Eric's credentials, and we all watched the video. It was clear from the video that Ben had broken a window in the back of the house to let the others in. The video showed everything that had happened from that point on. "Do you want a copy?" I asked. "Yes, please," the sergeant ordered. I made a copy as the criminals were led into the house with handcuffs behind their backs. "Look, kid, it was just a joke," Ben protested. "We didn't mean anything by it." The officers were professional and calmly led them away, charging them with several felonies, including breaking and entering, kidnapping, unlawful restraint, unlawful use of a controlled substance, assault, conspiracy, and attempted murder. The murder charge was related to the men throwing me into the pool while I was tied up. The sergeant suggested I be evaluated in the emergency room and called an ambulance. By then, my father had arrived, and we followed the ambulance to the hospital. They took blood samples from me and put me on an IV. "You're lucky, son," Dad said. "They could have killed you. Any idea what it was?" he asked Eric, who had joined us at the hospital. "Money," Eric said. "Jackson is in serious financial trouble and is facing foreclosure. Somehow, probably from Nikki, he found out about your son's inheritance and decided he could get it if he could get Stu to divorce her." "Did Nikki know about this?" I asked. "I don't think she knew about all of Jackson's intentions, but she knew enough. She definitely knew what was going to happen tonight," Eric said. Lisa entered the room, followed by another man who introduced himself as Detective Stanford. "How are you feeling, Mr. Johnston?" he asked. "Like I've been drugged, tied up, pissed on, and then thrown into a pool to drown?" I replied, half jokingly, half seriously. "Other than that, I'm perfectly fine." The detective chuckled. "At least you still have your sense of humor." "That's good," he said. "What's going to happen to them?" asked Dad. "If you ask me, they will all be held without bail, especially since Jackson lives next door to your son," replied the detective. "That's up to the judge, though. I'm putting together a list of charges that will hopefully keep them all behind bars for a long time. Right now, I'm waiting for Stu's blood test results." The test results came back an hour later, and I was told that the compound they used could have killed me on its own if they had injected a little more than they did. My father looked at Detective Stanford with thunder in his eyes. "Burn those worthless assholes, Detective," Father growled. "All of them." "I'll do my best, Mr. Johnson," the detective said before walking away. At the hospital, I was left overnight to get all the compounds out of my system. The next day, I returned home and fell asleep in the guest bedroom, physically and emotionally exhausted. My manager gave me the rest of the week off to rest, and I graciously accepted. 2 days later, I met Lisa at the jail. She was there to hand over the divorce papers, and I wanted to hand over a check for $253.18. I also wanted to talk to Nikki. Lisa handed the papers to the sergeant at the desk, who said he would make sure Nikki got them. Nikki was brought out in an orange jumpsuit and chains. She sat across from me with a thick plexiglass partition between us. The partition had holes in it that allowed visitors to talk to the prisoners without physical contact. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" I asked. "Sorry, it was supposed to be a prank," Nikki replied. "A prank? Are you kidding me? You and your lovers almost killed me. Twice." Nikki looked at me, shocked. "The first time when they injected me with that drug. The second time you made them throw me in the pool tied up. I could have drowned. This isn't a prank. This is attempted murder. And I believe that's exactly what you were planning. I mean, that's what happened, isn't it?" "No. I don't believe you, I don't. You knew I would never tolerate what you and Ben demanded. That's why you threw this little party, hoping something would happen and I'd end up dead." Nikki tried to look remorseful, but she failed miserably. Her face changed, and the way she looked at me was nothing short of evil. "Okay. You want the truth? Here it is. I wanted your inheritance, and I also wanted to have sex with Ben Jackson. So we, meaning me and Ben, decided to make your life impossible. At first I was content to just divorce you. Ben said I would get half of your inheritance and we would split it between us. He was desperate for money, but we didn't expect you to react the way you did, so we came up with a different plan. I was hoping you'd die in the pool and we could say you slipped and fell in there by accident. Then we'd get not only your inheritance, but everything. Your house, your insurance, everything. And we would have been provided for life. But no, you had to ruin everything by surviving and calling the police. You know, there was a time when I loved you more than life itself," I told her. "But that love died. Now I hate you with every fiber of my being. And do you want to know what's worse? I don't think I'll ever be able to trust or love another woman again. I'll do everything in my power to help them bury you so deep they'll have to wire sunlight to you." "And what proof do you have?" Nikki snorted with a dismissive smirk. I smiled and pulled out the audio recorder. Pressing the button, I let her listen to my own words. Her face turned white as she heard her confess her plan to kill me, framing it as an accident. "Not only that, there's a camera over there pointed right at you. And I know they're recording every conversation in here," I said. "Sign the divorce papers, take your check, and get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your pathetic life, stupid." I turned and walked away. Nikki, Ben, and the others were ordered held without bail. I testified at the trial, but my surveillance footage plus the video of the wedding decided the case. All members of the conspiracy were found guilty of all charges against them. The judge was so outraged by the nature of their crimes that he handed down the maximum penalty allowed by law. Nikki and Ben, however, got the worst of it. The judge gave them consecutive sentences, which meant they would both spend nearly 50 years in prison, without parole. My divorce went through the system without a hitch, but the lawsuit against Ben didn't go as I had hoped. To begin with, he had nothing to put his hands on. He sold his house and possessions, but most of that money went to his legal defense. By the time all was said and done, he was bankrupt. I dove headfirst into my work, completely renovating the house to destroy all traces of Nikki's existence. Over the next 2 years, I dated girls a few times and even slept with them. But I couldn't trust or love another woman after what Nikki had done. I even sought help from a counselor, but all to no avail. One day my dad called and asked me to come to his office, and I was curious to know why, since he didn't explain the reason. When I arrived, he introduced me to his new paralegal, Marie Gagnon. She was a charming brunette, and I was immediately enamored with her. However, I wrestled myself back to how I had been instantly smitten with Nikki. Dad explained that Nikki had just moved here from Montreal, and he wondered if I would mind showing her around and maybe taking her out to dinner. I realized what he was up to and smiled to myself. Of course, I'd be happy to accompany Ms. Gagnon, I told him. No need to be so formal, son, Dad said with a smile. I just thought she might want to spend time with someone closer to her age. You know, someone not attached. Got it, Dad, I said. Thanks. Just bring her back safe and sound, okay? That night was the first of many I spent with Marie. Turns out she was married too, and had divorced her husband after catching him in the marital bed with another woman. We had a lot in common. We both liked the same music, and we were both into art. You know, Stu, we're not all like Nikki, Marie said after I told her my sad story. I know, and not all men are like your ex. What was his name? Pierre? I think of him as asshole, but yeah, that was his name, Marie said, making me laugh. And then it hit me. It was the first real laugh I'd had in 2 years. You find that funny? No, it's the first time in 2 years that someone actually made me laugh. And it felt good. Thanks. You're welcome, Stu, Marie said with a smile that pulled me to her. I finally mustered up the courage to ask her to marry me, and she readily agreed. Then she surprised me by insisting on signing a prenup. I will never do the same thing to you, Nikki, but I want to show you that I can be trusted. I love you with all my heart, and I'll do anything to show it, she said. Overjoyed, Daddy drew up an agreement just like the one I had with Nikki. The wedding was beautiful, and we had a great time in Paris, where we went on our honeymoon. Fortunately, Marie spoke fluent French, but I remembered some of the French I had learned in school, and by the time we left, I could communicate with the locals on a limited level. We ended our trip to France with a visit to Normandy, where we looked at the beaches where Allied troops fought and died saving the world from the Nazis. Sure, my love for Nikki was as dead as the soldiers who died there, but my love for Marie was as fresh and bright as the morning sun, and I could tell she felt the same way about me. As my father said, Nikki sowed to the wind and received a whirlwind. I kissed my beautiful bride, and we left the beach hand in hand. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.